Hey, this is Jonathan Tung for GameDistiller Productions. I'm here with Alex Ahad, the lead character designer for Skullgirls, and today we're going to be talking about what it takes to make a decent video game character. So, Alex, glad you could take some of your time off here today at the Artist Alley to talk about this. So, how about we start by talking about how you were able to get into character design?
It's something that I've always done as a hobby since high school. So it was something I would like to design a lot of characters for fun. In terms of how I got into the industry, it was through mutual friends who knew Mike Z, and he was already in the industry at the time. They introduced me to him. He had a fighting game engine but no art for it, and like I was mentioning, I did a lot of character designs as a hobby. So my friends who knew that and knew I had like this kind of basic idea, introduced me to Mike, and that's basically how things got started.
I see. So now today you guys are working on Skullgirls, and I'd like to ask you a question. What actually goes into making a character for Skullgirls?
There are a lot of steps to the process. What happens is, obviously, at least for Skullgirls in particular, we have like a lot of these characters kind of planned out, so that's kind of the starting point. What happens though is I will flesh out like a model sheet that'll show like the characters in more detail, like what they look like at different angles, their personality, their power set, what kind of style we'd want them to have based on that power and their personality. But then, a lot of it will also be brainstorm for moves. We just try to be as creative as possible with it. And we have us and a whole team of artists do a lot of brainstorming of moves. Then we take it on to Mike, and we kind of based on the gameplay style that we want and what we want for the character, personality-wise, we try to make like a middle ground that works with gameplay function and style, but still is from this pool of brainstormed materials.
I see. Well, there is this one ongoing trend I've noticed lately in terms of most indie games, in which most of them seem to be utilizing an 8-bit or 16-bit classic game feel in order to replicate the games of the past. Do you think this is somewhat of a growing trend going on lately, or do you think it's just more of something that will just fade to obscurity in the near future?
You mean like using pixel art as like a style in the games?
Yeah.
These days? I think what it is it's a style choice at this point. It's not, it's not an actual technical limitation like as it used to be like back in the 90s or that era. It's more of people just kind of have a nostalgic feeling. I think that it will probably always have a place. I don't know if it will ever be like, obviously like a super prominent, like hyper growing trend or anything, but there's more options now. People can do like a more hand-drawn approach. They can do pixel art. They can do low polygons, which might also be another thing that ends up being a nostalgic feeling thing. Others might try to do like something that feels like a PS1 era or DS game style, because that has its own appeal too. It's kind of like the polygon equivalent of pixel art. So, you're going to see like things that'll be retro, and then the sense of retro will probably move on as generations move on, but it'll always be there. Kind of like how people like the look of things from the 80s or 70s like now. It's just kind of like something that'll always be like an option.
I see. So now that you're pretty much done with Skullgirls, do you have any idea on what you want to do next?
Well, we're still working on Skullgirls.
I mean, what do you guys plan on doing after Skullgirls?
It kind of depends. We like the idea of like thinking of other ideas to pitch around, but we haven't landed anything solid yet. I mean, it's the kind of thing we just like to brainstorm about. So I guess nothing specific to mention right now, but we're thinking about it.
I see. And in your opinion, what do you think about this whole indie parity clause thing going on with Microsoft, in which they usually force the games to be released on Microsoft's game console day and date with pretty much every other platform?
You mean like how it makes it like complicated to release things because we have to release at the same time there? I guess it did make things a bit tricky for sure. So I mean, that's why you see a lot of games that are only on Steam and PSN now, like some things like that, like Transistor, for example, if I remember right, is only on those two, just because it's like difficult to work with like that kind of system, and that's totally understandable. We kind of run into some of that a little bit too, yeah.
And what do you think about indie community's increased reliance on Unity?
I think it's pretty cool. I know my friend, the person next to me at the table, actually, she uses Unity for her programs and for her games, and it's like the fact that it can be ported to other systems very easily is very awesome. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
And do you guys have any plans on like porting Skullgirls to like next gen consoles in the future?
I think there are I'm trying to remember if it's public yet, but there are, I mean, it's being talked about, yeah.
So you guys are thinking about it.
We're thinking about it. I mean, like, we haven't I'm trying to remember sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah. It's we're thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay then. Well, I appreciate you taking some of your time today, and once again, thanks for your help in our interview.
Yeah.
No problem. For that, I am Jonathan Tung, and I'll see you next time.